Hello everybody, this is John Riley coming to you from sunny South Florida. This is my Solo 665. And what it is, it's got a Domar 7910 cylinder that was done to the max by the late Eric Copsey, unfortunately. But you can see how he cut the squish band to the limit on this thing. This thing pumped up to 240 static. This bitch was a runner, man. Very, very hot cylinder. Shitload of port work done to it. The exhaust port, you can see on these Domars, they have an insert. I don't know why. It's one of the first ones I did, or the newer ones I did. I kind of opened this exhaust up too much, I think. So what I did, I'll show you what I did. On the exhaust, I made a flap to go in and take up about 25% of the exhaust port. Similar to what I did to this big bore cylinder. Now this is a 54 millimeter cylinder I'm going to try to run on this saw. What I'm going to try to do is make a high performance work saw, because I miss having a Solo that I can work with. So I'm putting the dogs back on it and all that, to say the least. But this one has an insert that I made. You can see that whole metal piece there. This takes up probably about 35% of the cylinder. This was way too big because I had this all welded up by my friend Lewis. He welded the sides too so I could go wider with the transfer ports to accommodate the 54 millimeter bore. So what I'm doing now is I put a base gasket on it that's 11 thousandths, and I'm hoping it takes a little bit of wind out of it. And I'm gonna do a compression test on it and see where it is with just a little bit of WD-40 in there, just to get a rough idea. If I can get it around 200, that'll be still a little hot for a work saw. 190 is better, I think. So you don't get that runoff and shit. But this has a 272 Husky coil, a lot of ignition timing. It's where it needs to be to make it run right. The muffler I took it all apart. Eric Copsey taught me that trick. And I gutted it. It's completely hollow. You can feel it's super light. It's got a WJ 118 390 Husqvarna style carburetor, and ironically enough, it's got the same displacement as a Husqvarna 390. It's 88 cc's, but it actually has one more millimeter stroke, where a 390 has 37 millimeters. This has 38, and this has a one more millimeter of bore. It's 54 millimeter, and I think the 390 has 55 millimeter bore, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, because the 385 is 85 cc's and the 390 is 88 cc's. That's what it is. But these run really good, and they do like a little bit bigger bore. It does make a difference. There's enough case volume to handle it. It's funny because they use the same saw from the 65 cc to 75 to 81. It's the same everything, bottom end stroke, everything. It's all identical. Even the cylinders have the same part number on it, even though they're smaller bore. But what I did, which I said before, if you follow my videos, I took a 375 cylinder, the old style one, with the compression release way up here. It was one of the early on cylinders. I had US Chrome bore it out, or they sourced it out, and they had it bored out to 54 millimeters, and they re-nickel-sealed it. They did a beautiful job. After my friend Lewis had welded the shit out of it. You see it just clears the flywheel nicely. But this way I had a lot of room and a lot of option to get in there and spend some time and open the transfers up the way I like them. And I had to use a little epoxy to squeeze down the intake port. I tried to go a little too much with this cylinder and it didn't work that good. But when I restricted it back again, man, it woke up from the dead and really made some good power. So anyway, long story long, I'm going to try to get this baby to run good and use it as a work saw. Probably swing a 20-inch bar or 25-inch bar, a lightweight bar. And I was watching this other guy's video. He took a brand new 681 out of the box, had it ported, and he uses the shit out of it on the job. And I was kind of jealous seeing how much. And I remember how I felt when I got my first 681. I was so freaking stoked. I was like a kid at Christmas. I couldn't believe I got one after the big hype, over the Solos. And I got that bitch for $400 from my friend Tony at Kimber's. He said it was a demo saw, and I thought they put gas in it, but they didn't. They just used it at the trade shows, and it had fingerprints on it. I'm like, oh wow, fingerprints. You know what I mean? So he's like, well, I'll give you a good deal on it since it's not brand new anymore. Shit. I consider that brand spanking new. But anyway, there's a ton of work done to this saw. Solo gives you two options with your air filters. They give you a high flow filter like this one, and then they give you a cloth one, which I have a million of both of them. So I used the screen one, and then I put a bigger carburetor on it. I've got the choke set up to where the choke will work. And this one went from 65 cc's to 88. And the crank's done by Falcon. It's a brand new Solo crank. Falcon trues it, makes it really straight, and then they weld it. So it's tacked, it's welded, because once they come off the pin, they're junk. You cannot straighten them out. I've tried. I've sent them some cranks that came off the pin. They've straightened them out, and then after a little while, they start walking again on you. When you pull the starter, the pull starter with the plug out, you can see the chain gets tight, loose, because the PTO side comes off the pin and it wobbles and it just kills the power. All of a sudden it'll be a freaking pig out of nowhere. But anyway, what was I saying? Okay, so it's got the unlimited coil, it's got the hollow muffler, it's got a ton of timing, it's got a shitload of port work. Eric milled this cylinder. I'm trying to get the compression down to where it's a usable work saw, and that's that. You just got to be careful with these pull starters too. These little plastic things are super weak, and Dolmar uses this on a smaller saw. It's the same exact part number as one of the Dolmars. I need to get 3 or 4 of these again, because they'll just get a big crack in them. Looks like this one's already getting a crack in it, or maybe it's just my that's my imagination. Good, thank God. But anyway, I call this the copycat killer. Copycat killer too, because I had another one and I sold it to somebody, but I like the name, because the reason I call it the copycat, because everybody was putting the Dolmar cylinders on the 665s to make them 81 cc's, and it was a pretty popular setup, because you can get the Dolmar piston and cylinder kits pretty reasonable, and they're nice because the pistons are really light. They come with a tapered pin, and I think the porting's really nice on a 7910 cylinder. But that's that. So I'll put this baby together and see how she runs, but I'm going to do a quick compression test on it now. Like I said, I'll put a little WD-40 in there to just kind of seal it up and just pull it a few times, and then just get a baseline of where we're at with the compression. Now, and then I'll make another video after I put it together. So thanks for watching.